Good morning. Good morning, all of you wonderful people. Good morning, wonderful ladies. Welcome to the G100 Global Networking Fresh and Enriching Conversations. We're being empowered by fresh and enriching conversations today. I have wonderful, wonderful women to share with you today. Get your hot cup of coffee or tea and join us. Today on our panel, we have Mar and Trini, Global Chair of the All Ladies League Global Networking Wing. She is a political analyst and sustainability champion. Welcome, Mar.
Thank you so much,
And
Tanya. It's a pleasure to be sharing with you all this space that we created to generate more exchange, more enriched, and above all, this fresh spirit that we love to keep it with us.
yes, thank you. So glad you're here. And we have Sharia Shetty. Shreya is the founder and chief consultant in Elite India Consultancy. She is an investor in human capital, and we are happy to have her with us this morning. Good morning, Shreya. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. Very good afternoon, good evening, and namaste from India. Tanya, I am so grateful to see you and, of course, Mar's gracious invitation to invite me and have me over for this wonderful, wonderful, empowering conversation. So I really look forward to listening to all the co-speakers today evening. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And our topic for today is emotional management. That is a very important topic, especially in this particular time with everything that we've experienced throughout the world and what we're coming out of. And we want to bring freshness and enrich your soul today. And we will start with Sharia Shetty. She is going to speak with us about emotional management. Shreya, share with us.
All, all right, thank you so much. So, taking over from there, well, before I speak and address our lovely audience today evening on managing emotions or what is it all about, emotional wellness for, in particularly for women, for empowering themselves, I would like to take your little notice and divert your attention towards terminology which I recently came across. So I would like to put across this question, in fact, Tanya, to you. Have you ever come across the term Superwoman Syndrome? Or probably
Yes,
it's open for everyone.
yes, the Superwoman Syndrome. I am familiar with that. I can do everything,
Yes. So,
everything.
yeah. So interestingly, I would just share the small story before I, start off talking on today's topic of emotional management. Given my background and my professional work as a human capital investor, I work with largely companies, organizations, and individuals, wherein we try to work on the employee workforce and their mental wellness. So there was this organization wherein we were, it was a women-centric organization, and me, along with my team of clinical psychologists and psychotherapists and wellness coaches, we were given this task of identifying the wellness factor, and that's where when brainstorming with the team, we were setting up parameters and stuff like that. My clinical psychologist happened to tell me that 99%, in fact, 99.10% of the women largely suffer from this syndrome called superwoman syndrome. And that slightly took me aback. I asked her whether it's a life-threatening condition. She told me it may not be a life-threatening condition, but it definitely is a peace-threatening condition. And that's where we dwelt much deeper into the topic. And that's where we realized that today's woman who is juggling on all the fronts, whether it is fulfilling her duties, responsibilities back in her personal, professional front, or fulfilling her in-laws' expectations back at home, taking care of the child's needs, education and household chores, husband's wishes, spouses' expectations, balancing all of that. somewhere, she puts herself on the back seat, putting herself on the last, on the priority list. And that's where, while juggling so many tasks, it happens that she sets the benchmark of excellence, or, stretching it to, doing all her responsibilities with perfectionist attitude. So that is something which, goes a little beyond, certain threshold. And that is where a woman starts feeling that, she has to stretch herself, not just physically, but more so mentally, emotionally, and psychologically. So taking again, a little reference and statistical data, when we talk about the global trends and highlights of World Economic Forum, which published a report in 2021 based on the research that, there were some startling facts and figures which came up with during the pandemic. Of course, it was an eye opener in more than one ways. And particularly with women's wellness issues, it came that, largely women were affected, and the mental health issues were seen to be cropping up and were on the rise. So what could be the various factors? When we delve little deeper into it, there could be work pressure. Of course, parenting had taken a toll, work from home routine, because there was, have a lot of flexibility. At the same time, there were a lot of delivery pressures and timelines attached to it. So I think women in general was going through a lot of issues on the work front, on the social front. When we talk about even the seven dimensions of wellness, which inculcates the physiological factors, the social factors, the environmental factors, emotional, and so to say, the holistic way, when we are talking about how a woman can manage her wellness journey amidst all these challenges. So, what a superwoman syndrome talks about, like I said, the social upbringing plays a pivotal role here in its emergence, where we have a society on the one hand which is open to accepting women leaders, women in businesses, women in entrepreneurship, and various other roles. But at the same time, I feel there's too much of pressure which is being put up, in the way how a woman should conduct herself, what should be her choices, or what could be probably, she would be wearing in the boardroom, or what is she doing in her personal life. So there are a lot of do's and don'ts restrictions which have been put up by the society, and that is where, while living up to the expectations, I feel, as a woman in entrepreneurship role or a leadership role, I come across a lot of challenges in day-to-day life, and that is where, I need to have control over my emotions. And largely, if I am dependent on my happiness, finding it in others, then that is something which is going to hamper my own mental and physical and emotional health as well. As we see, there are a lot of autoimmune diseases or psychosomatic. Of course, we would have the discussion later on that as well. But it is largely and by large affecting the emotional, health of the women, who is largely contributing not just into the social development but also the economic development for any given country. So I feel, it's an important topic to talk about who is more vulnerable in this particular situation. So if I had to ask you, what do you think? Who is suffering from the superwoman syndrome? Is it only a special category of women who can be put, or it could be anybody? It could be a housewife, or it could be possibly any professional homemaker or a businesswoman, or it could be you and me as well, because at times we do really stretch ourselves, juggling too many things and setting those high standards of perfectionism every time, where we are setting new standards and we are trying our level best to reach them, and somewhere we fall short of it. So the very idea is, to accept ourselves the way we are. We may not be perfect, and we might be, embracing a lot of our imperfections. But as long as you have that self-acceptance, I think it's very important for a woman on her wellness journey to embrace those imperfections and to let go of certain things, especially when it comes to her performance, her productivity, or expectations that the society has from her. So that is an important aspect when we address the emotional management topic. And of course, I would like to also, address certain symptoms which could be diagnosed at an early stage to have this super women syndrome. detected early in women so that preventive measures or remedial measures could be taken. Often we see that women, struggle themselves on the professional front, personal front, and quite familiar. We tend to ignore the body signals or the symptoms that are being given by the system. It could be in terms of frustration, it could be anger, it could be nervousness, or it could be even a disturbed chronobiology. The sleep patterns are quite erratic for a lot of us. I personally talking about my empowering journey. I think when I lost my dear one, it took me 10 long years to accept the fact, to bereave the grief. And that disturbed me a lot, and when I started working on my emotional management, I think I understood how it needs to be balanced. So, drawing parallel from my life journey, I could see that, happening with a lot of women around. And now, when I interact with people around, with women around in various roles and various, organizations, I can completely resonate with that because I have been there, I have gone through that journey, and I know how it, it shapes up to be like. So I think these are few checkpoints which every woman should be really taking care of, whether she's having certain anxiety issues, nervousness, or some kind of self-doubting, self-blaming behavior, some kind of memory issues, or that constant feeling of discontent or unhappiness in herself. So while tackling a lot of things, I think we speak about do's and don'ts. We talk about self-care. We talk about empathy. We talk about self-acceptance. But for me, as an individual, what worked for me, I would like to share, with everyone out here. So the first thing is to just remove the cape and throw it off. The very simple thing to do, while dealing with the Superwoman syndrome. So that's what really takes a lot of courage, taking the first step. And then I think it, just following a simple approach, like it could be as good as asking for help, because often we see that asking for help is seen as a sign of weakness, but it is not, how it is perceived. So asking for help just shows that, you cannot be perfect all the time. You cannot do it everything all by yourself. So having a help,
Right.
having a helping hand always helps you, talking to your friends, colleagues, that could probably give you a different perspective. After that, I
Yes.
think setting realistic goals is also very important. That's where, often we can be flexible with ourselves, not crucifying ourselves or stretching,
Right.
a tad bit, uh, overcoming, our own set limitations or expectations. So that is where I think we should make our goals realistic as well as attainable. And please, ladies, do consider your own wishes before you take into
Yeah. Shreya,
consideration what works. Yeah.
I'd like to have Bridget make an input on that. We have Bridget Tan on our panel today. Bridget is a bestseller author and she is the founder and president of the Childhood Cancer Charity. Bridget, what would be your input on what Shreya has shared with us? Something she said stood out to me, and I said, wow, I wonder what your perspective would be on that. The Superwoman Syndrome and juggling all those balls.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for asking my input, Tanya. I love the discussion, Tria. It's wonderful. And now these whole discussions make me think about what Sigmund Freud says about perfection,
Mm,
which is the more perfect a person is on the outside, the more demons they have on the inside.
mm,
How about that? And a
yeah.
lot of times that's because we try to, the perfectionist, I say it in many times, including in my book, Seeking Peace, that perfection is an illusion. And I love
Mhm.
how you put that on all the different way that it can cause so much strain to us, therefore causing a lot of demons inside Sriya that it is. And you share all this different approach on how to be for a woman to be less in such a strain. If you were to pick one approach, which one would you say if somebody like the way I was only 10, 12 years ago? I was basically, I know very well that quote. It was so perfect on the outside, and everything inside was falling apart. What would be the one step that you would say to start with?
Yeah, Sharia, what would be the one step?
Okay, for me, I think it would be building upon the emotional resilience part. That would really take care
Mm,
of a lot of aspects in life. So, resilience, yeah,
mm,
mental resilience or emotional resilience, as you call it. That would be the first
mm,
step or approach I would take.
mm. That sounds good. Mara, have you experienced that at all in your space?
I love that of the superhuman syndrome,
Yeah.
because it can be something negative, or it can be very positive. It
Mm-hmm.
depends on how you see it. Because if you could juggle with everything, it's okay. Because the more you could do, the more you could expand, the bigger
Mm-hmm.
and the greater you became. But the fact is, when they go against that person, that person cannot run that speed, and I think that is what Shreya is addressing. They ask for help,
Yeah.
and it always came to my mind what is our network, because this
Mm-hmm.
kind of organization help you to be self-critical and to feel the support of others, to feel that you are
Yeah.
not alone, that there are others feeling the same, or that you don't have to become a superhuman. So if you do it, it's fine. But if you can, it's okay. It's
Right.
okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
And it just follow others and share with you your experience and your frustration, because they always be there. No, I think it's a matter of balance with your own. How much could I juggle or not? It's a balance with you. No, that is my
Mm-hmm.
idea.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I have that visual in my head, Shreya, of taking the cape off. That really, really stands out for me. I love the way you put that. And we have our other panelists for today. We have Paula Alphonse. Paula is a facilitator, a transformation facilitator. And she has over 16 years management experience and other professional experience that fuels her and makes her very much prepared and the person to do what she does. Paula, what do you have to say about this whole superwoman? We're going to do it all. We have our cape, we have our tools, and we are ready to conquer the world. How do you approach, or what can you add or resonate with Shreya about how to manage the emotions?
For me, I would say there's different element to consider, but the first thing is to figure out what are your own boundaries. And I was raised with a mom who was very much a superwoman, and we were that information or that behavior was passed on, as they say. You can only rely on yourself. Things are only done by you, otherwise they're not done the way you want it, and stuff like this. So that required, when I became an adult, some untangling to figure out what do I want to invest my time in and what I do not want to invest my time in. Was I a superwoman at a point? Oh, definitely. I ran my household, and I had a very hectic job and very demanding job, and I loved what I was doing. So you sometimes forgot that you still need to put your boundaries as to what you can and cannot do, because there's only
Yeah,
24 hours in a day.
that's
So,
right.
oh yeah, 24 hours. No matter how much you want to stretch it, it still comes back to 24 hours.
Yeah.
So it's through different struggles to my life that I
Mhm.
had to figure out, you know what? I'm the one who has to pull the plug. I'm the one who has
Yeah.
to say no. I'm the one who has to decide what is worth my investment or not.
Mhm.
And in that conversation, sometimes that would mean Yes, that sounds very interesting, but I'm not sure I can. And pass it on to someone else. If you can refer someone else, even better. But it's the
Yeah.
sense where, you can't be everywhere and do everything and hope to be there present for the people you care
Right.
about. So those are choices. And for me, boundaries was my way out. And I
Yeah.
taught my girls, because I have three young
Yeah.
adults, to also put their boundaries because,
Well, Paula, we're gonna get to
yeah,
you with that. I wanted you to chime in on Shreya's
yeah.
comment there on that, and I appreciate that because I want to give you a formal introduction there. Shreya, how is it that you personally um, manage your emotions during stressful times?
All right. So I think for me, it is a combination of things that I have been experimenting over the years because you cannot get it right. Again, the Superwoman Syndrome that we always look for that perfectionist solution. And for me, it has been an exploration, more so experimenting what works and what doesn't work for my emotional and mental well being. So, like I said, at times when you are facing stressful situations, and
Mhm.
you have your emotional outburst. Of course, when I started as a fresher grad into the consulting world, I used to have this sporadic, temper tantrums, which I used to call. When somebody used to blame me for something that I was not to be held responsible, or there could be any situation like you are working hard on a project and suddenly that project is taken away from you, or it could be the sense of insecurity that you are not being appraised properly by your superiors. So these were the kind of challenges that in my initial years of my career when I stepped into this consulting industry. I'm talking about way back in 2005, as an engineering grad. So I was too
Mhm.
raw in terms of understanding my emotions, but I think the last decade has really helped me to shape up myself, accepting
Mhm.
certain things. Again, here, I would like to make a mention that having brought up in a traditional society, more of a patriarchal society where be it
Mhm.
your teachers, your parents, they try and tell you that you have to behave in a certain way, or you have to keep fixing your weaknesses. That's how we have been taught
Yes.
up in our formating years. But ultimately I realized that when you start risking those imperfections, or when you start embracing your own
Mhm.
weaknesses, those turn out to be your strength, and that's where the resilience comes from. So for me, it was, building upon my resilience. It was, like Paula mentioned, setting boundaries. It became necessary when engaging with certain people where my energy is flowing, where my thoughts are flowing, and putting certain boundaries to let people know that they don't, they can't really cross those boundaries. So for me, it was a gradual journey from understanding, those emotions, accepting my own weaknesses, and then overcoming those
Mhm.
challenges. So I think that really gave me a breakthrough in my own transformational journey, where I had
Mhm.
massive breakthroughs and massive personal and self development evolving out of
Yeah.
it. And also, it gave me a chance to amplify my flaws. So now I proudly can say that when you are ready to uh, transform yourself, and when you're all out there showcasing, accepting your own fears, your own insecurity, and overcoming
Mhm.
them by embracing your imperfections, that's where
Yes.
the real resilience builds up to rise above all the odds and challenges that life throws at you. So yeah, that's a little solution centric approach that really worked for me.
Yeah.
And I think that most of the women can definitely benefit if they look at amplifying their flaws and rather denying them. I mean, given to my own elements, I always keep seeking out for challenges rather than
Mm.
avoiding uncomfortable situations. There was a time when I
That's
used to
really
feel discomfort.
awesome. Yeah, that's really awesome that you would say that. That is really a big space and a big topic. And I'm glad you mentioned that, embracing the imperfections. And I thank you for sharing that, Shreya, and how that showed you the resiliency and was the, I guess, the onset for you in coming out of that whole syndrome. And you mentioned something that leads us into Paula's topic of setting boundaries and how important that is. And Paula, I'd like for you to expand on what you were sharing about what you did and how that occurred for you and how you've been able to set some parameters in your life that have been beneficial. Paula. Oh, we can't hear you, Paula.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be honest, it didn't happen overnight. It took time, and there were ups and downs, there were hurdles. And it's the portion where you have to figure out for yourself what's working, what's serving you, and what's not serving you. So it's about unpacking those perceptions, those beliefs, those excess luggage that I call them often, and figuring out, okay, is it still good or not? I am choosing to travel with a carry-on luggage rather than that 5 or 6 pieces that we used to buy, and everywhere we go, we got stuff. Is it, oh yes, I have that. Let me see, I can find it in my suitcase. So that's the part. As I matured, I decided, yeah, you know what? I don't need all of that in order to be functional. I don't need all of that in order to feel that I am in the right place, doing the right thing, and being the person I am meant to be. So it's a journey. I'm not even going to pretend that it's something that you wake up one day and say, I know, I figured it out. No, it's a journey. Sometimes it's
Right.
messier than others. And for me, I threw a lot of my experience from everyday activity. I
Mm.
remember at one point in my 20s, I went on a trip with my family, and I had 2 huge suitcases, clothes for every single day, matching accessories, shoes, and all kinds of things, just in case anything happened. And as I grew up, as I mature, it's just like, but do you need to have all of this? Because this is too much. And sometimes we need those visuals to understand what's happening, what we need to unpack in our own
Mm.
reality. And that's what I try to do.
Yes.
And when I work with people, it's this part where you help them figure out, what am I carrying?
Mm.
Is it things I still need? Do I need to make room for other things? And as you're doing this, then this is how you start figuring out, okay, there are excess luggage. And if you're traveling and your suitcase is too heavy, you pay for it.
Yes.
In the real life, if you're traveling and your suitcase is too heavy, your luggage is too heavy, you pay for it. And it's going to show up in different ways, whether it's tension, whether it's stress, anxiety, or whatever else. And hopefully, you don't get to the depression and the burnout. But those are all impacts that come with not setting boundaries, but also carrying the weight for other people. And
Mm.
that's something we have to work on. And I wish I
Yes.
could tell you, oh my God, just follow the checklist. There is no checklist.
That would be easy.
Oh gosh, it seems okay. I'll send you, one of those 2-pager checklists, and you can decide which one. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. So it's these things where you have to do the groundwork. Nobody else
Mm.
can do it on that.
Yes.
And if you don't mind me asking a question,
Okay.
can I? Okay.
Yes.
When you guys think about boundaries, what comes to mind for you?
Mm. protecting my space.
Protecting your space. Okay. What else? Yes.
Intrusive, intrusive people.
Intrusive people. Okay. Anything else?
I think for me, it is, a strict no, or trespassers and gate crashers are totally prohibited. So for me, setting
Okay.
boundaries was saying no to others, because I learned it the hard way.
And for me, when I'm thinking about boundaries, what I've noticed when you talk to women, mostly women, because for some reason, men don't seem to have those challenges about boundaries. They don't want to do something, they just say, no, no explanation. We are trying, okay, if I tell him that, then he, and they don't care. They tell you. So it is something the way we're raised that we're thinking that it's not meant for us to do. But we
Yes.
are using boundaries every single day without even acknowledging and realizing. So when we normalize those, then we start seeing how it impacts other areas of your life. Most of you lock your car when you get out of your car. True or false?
Yes. True.
That's a boundary. Don't want nobody in my car if I'm not there. Same thing for your house. Some of you, depending on your neighborhood, would have fences around your home. And that's to let people know, don't come into my space if I don't invite you. So there's different things we do. Passwords on cell phone or on your PC. Those are boundaries, but we
Yeah.
don't think about it like that. So the challenge is oftentimes we think about boundaries in terms of the easier boundaries we think of are things about our materials and our possessions. But every day as women, there are other boundaries that we need to put from the perspective of, I don't like intrusive people. So how do I manage those? Prepare your answer in advance. If some people, one of those questions I used to get, and I was always, oh, I'm surprised that you're so comfortable asking this. But it was this, how much money do you make?
Oh.
And I'm like, in my head, the word would come, none of your business. But my mouth would say, in the beginning, I would try and find a number that would be okay to share. And then over time, and I'm like, I no longer play this game. And I said, interesting that you would want to know, or surprised that you're asking a question. So I throw the ball right at you. Because if you want to know about me, tell me about you. So it's a two-way street. And those
Yeah.
are some of the elements when we're thinking about boundaries. We have to think about those situations where we actually start paying attention. If we face one issue, then how do I prepare for the next time? Because if I don't, guess what? It's going to happen. And you're like, and you can't come up, or you say something and you're like, I didn't want to say that. Then that's part of that reflection.
Yeah.
And again, this goes back to the way we were raised. As
Yeah.
girls, we're told we should be nice. When boys, we
Yes.
tell them they should be strong. So
Right.
if you were raised in that environment where you always had to cater, please other people, take care of other people, guess what?
Right.
You get into other areas of life and you take that with you. I often
Right.
tell my kids that home is the first, or family is the first society you live in. If there
That
are
is
things
true.
you do not learn there, guess what? You're gonna learn it anyway. And
Right.
it might be a little harder. So there are things that I've noticed in my family behaviors, because we're all overachievers and we all get to that point where it's like I can't stand people no more. But the
Oh.
problem is not the people, it's
Right.
you not setting those boundaries. And we often forget that in every interaction, in every situation, every one of my yes or no's show people how to treat us.
Yes, that is exactly it. And Bridget, I saw you shaking your head. How has that been for you? Do you see how your upbringing maybe may have contributed? And I don't know if that had been an issue for you as far as setting boundaries and just knowing how to manage that emotional baggage, if you will.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And for me it is in one way growing up in Asian culture where women are taught to be this way and that way and just taken in and so forth, and at the same time being the culture being modernized, they are being were being taught, oh, you got to do this at home, and then now you got to learn to work. And that's always very
Mm,
interesting to see how people trying to adapt to that and to catch up. And
mm,
I would say for me personally, for better or worse, in terms of boundary, I grew up being the only child.
yes.
If you know what
Oh,
that means I'm this, and I grew up very fortunately in a economically very comfortable family. So I have, I was, I grew up in such a way where everything is for me and about me, and so if anything, opposite to almost everybody else, I would say I have a lot of boundary because everything in this world has to be for me and about me when I was younger.
So there's a plus. There's plus and minus to any
Yes, yes.
situation.
If there's a plus on that, I don't get overload. And the minus part is I got to learn that, this is a word where you connect with each other and
yes.
it's not all about you. And at the same time, there was a time in my life, as you said, where I start to lean and turn to become a little bit of a doormat, interestingly,
Mm,
and it
wow.
was definitely finding balance. And I would say it's a day-to-day balance. It's a day-to-day
Yeah.
balance for each and every one of us.
Yeah.
Bridget, I could never imagine that someone so compassionate as you are, a compassionate person as you were, so spoiled. You have a vast compassion that you adapt today. So, that means that you could learn
Oh,
set
definitely.
boundaries. No, it's a learning process. So if
Yeah.
someone don't know how to cope with boundaries, don't worry. It's just you have to learn from it.
And it's interesting. I've noticed the contrast because Shreya, you were talking about how you had to establish those boundaries in your family in order to be heard or allowed not to do something that you did not want to do. So the contrast between your experience and Bridget's are it's just really a dichotomy. So did you? I know you shared how that played out for you in the workforce, and I think that's something that all of us as women have had to confront, except maybe Bridget because Bridget had a different space. She was blessed with a different space there. But I'm glad you brought that up, Bridget, because we think about boundaries and all that, and I don't know that any of us thought about the other side, someone who had to actually you realize that it was not all about them. So, Shreya, was that a difficult? I'm glad that both of you, all of you, have mentioned how it's a gradual process, and for me, that really stands out. I don't know if it stands out for anyone else, um, because I'm like one of those instant or ready now, or you do things this way, and this is supposed to happen. And it does not always work like that. It is a process, it's a gradual, it's a learning. So for you, Shreya, how did that? It's really fascinating how that played out in your family. Did you get a lot of pushback on that once you began to embrace your imperfections and saying no, what I do want and what I don't want? Was that a real challenge in the family?
I would say yes, it was definitely challenging because when you are trying to break the stereotypical, things that have been in a way There have been generations of trauma running in the families. I mean, when you look around, there could be a lot of dysfunctional families around. But when you play the victim card and you think that it's all happening with you, so you suddenly start, going into that phase where you feel that all sorts of negative things are happening to you. But I think it takes a moment, like Paula also mentioned, there couldn't be a checklist which could be there. It is, of course, you need to work on your own checklist, what works, and, it's a self-exploratory process. So for me, I think the last 2 decades of journey, wherein there have been multiple stressful situations at the family front, where I had to stand up for myself, put my foot down clearly, voicing out my opinion, which was not easy given the circumstances. But yes, I made those choices, and for me,
Yeah.
that has been real empowerment. So for if I had to put it, that yes, whether it is setting boundaries for yourself or standing for up for yourself, or voicing your opinion, whether it's your career, whether it's your personal life, your social life, your professional front, for me, taking that decision of coming out of a cushiony job of corporate, while being at the peak of my career of, say around 12 years, and then suddenly getting into entrepreneurship, it was not a easy cakewalk, I would say. It's still not. And of course, there were a lot of challenges, and there were people who said that, you are absolutely crazy with this idea of, going around and experimenting with things which possibly, might not work or backfire. So that included family, friends, colleagues, everyone. But I think the small voice that keeps, talking to you in your head always, I think that is something which each one of us, the inner voice and the calling, I think, has to be really clear. And when that passion is,
Yeah.
seen, when you are working something on a greater cause, which is much more than bigger than yourself, I think that's where your true vision and mission, shapes up. And that was the clarity which I, with which I moved ahead in my life, both personally and professionally. And that really helped me to empower and make those choices which were transforming and putting me on the path of excellence. So, yes, I would say that, when women really have those options, do we really, as women, have those choices? We often say that women are spoiled for choices. But I would like to really, understand from all the experts, are we really having those empowering choices in our life, where we stand up for ourselves, where we, don't have to choose this or that career? Or I think in India, I would say, being single in 30s is like receiving a medal, because every function that you go, you would be asked this question: oh, when are you getting married? When is your daughter getting married? So I think I can claim that medal being in my mid 30s without revealing my age. Of course, I'm proud of that. But yes,
Yes.
making choice, being single or being married, and managing work front, managing your work-life balance, it's more about making the choices every day. So yeah, that is something which really, worked for me.
Yeah. Yes, Paula.
If I can say
Amar.
something on that, when it comes to making those changes, you have to be ready to expect pushback, because if you've been playing the front door mat, everybody was enjoying that space, getting what they wanted out of you, so they were okay. So all of a sudden you're telling them, yeah, you can no longer scrape your feet over me, and they're like, why not? And I wasn't scraping my feet, I was just getting to know you. No, no, it's this part where whatever change you're making also has an impact on the other people. And if you're not prepared for that, you're going to be behaving as though, oh my, oh, okay, then this time I let it slide. This time, and then you're right back. You're showing them again how to treat you. So this is the
Yes.
part you have to have a vision. It's like kids. Let's just say you raise the kids and everything they want, you give them. The very first time you're going to say no, they're gonna throw a temper tantrum. And you're like, oh no, this is not happening in my house. So you have that vision, you have that boundary. So this is when you're setting boundaries and sharing with the people what you're setting as a boundary, you want to let them know that it is to make this relationship work better.
Yes.
So this is a two-way street. It's not
It
one of
is.
those negotiation where it's okay. I didn't really want to eat, so you can have that food. Oh, you finished the blah blah blah. Oh, it's okay. I didn't really want it anymore. No, 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 no. If you can have 10 pieces of it, can I have one piece? Or can I have
Yeah.
3 pieces? So this is the
And
portion where you want them to understand that there has to be a fair exchange. It has to be this sense of reciprocity. If you're in a
yeah.
relationship, if you're at work, wherever you are, and you feel
Mhm.
that people are always taking from you, you get resentful and you no longer
Right.
trust people. So this is the part where the other people, because you didn't say no, let's say you have to own what you didn't do. It's the
Mm.
accountability. Because you
Wow.
did say no, they think it's okay, you really don't mind.
Yeah, we did. I didn't think about that
Just
part. You're
wait.
right. The accountability.
Yeah,
And
so go
Mar had
ahead.
a
Yeah,
comment on your
and
story.
also, Paula, when people are talking about boundaries in general, they associate it with with distance. That you are putting distance. You're a cold person that put distance. It had nothing to do with that. And many times, boundaries is about respect.
Yes,
People
Yes.
respect.
yes.
The people respect you more, or starting respect you just because you put that boundary. You say this is how much you can move to from my space. No, this is very important. And in testing
Yes.
time as this one, as COVID, the protecting our environment physically and mentally is so important.
Yes.
And we don't have to be scared to say no. No, you can't came home because we are living in COVID, and but now it's fine, and I could go with my mask. No, don't care, and it's okay if that's your decision. Take your own decision and your own rules of protection. And I would like to go back with Shreya. Shreya, you are always so inspired. Paula is the first time that I met her. She's also full of wisdom and inspiration. Thank you, Paula, for being here. And Shreya, you're so inspiring because you rise as well what means to be with the society, what means to
Mhm.
build your own resilience against your society. So you build
Mm.
your personal resilience that is not the society resilient code. And we rise that with the other events that we hold with physical stereotypes. You cannot be fat, no, because if you are fat, this is not an stereotype for you to be under a beauty. You are not a beauty. So you have to change. You have to go on diets, etc., etc. And this stereotype is what really is so harmful, and that's why we wanted to address it. No, many times when the people came to our and I end with this, when people came to our network, of G100, they are asking for empowerment, as if the word just your phone that you give it to them. So this is your empowerment. Use it, and it's not. You have to do it by your own. As Shreya said, it was my own
Mm.
work with myself, and you have this network to take that tools. There are no recipes because we don't know your own reality, your society, and your own needs and preference.
Right.
So you have to adapt it to that. And this is so challenging and so difficult.
Thank you for sharing that, Mar. All of you. This has been such a wonderful. I don't know about anyone else feeling refreshed, but I feel refreshed. All of the authentic sharing, I appreciate that so much. And as we wrap up, were there any questions out there, Mar, that you could see?
No, the word.
Okay,
I would
no
like to
comments.
just to highlight the comments from Anita Caprice that we
Yes,
sent her a big hug. She
yes,
was
big
here with
hug.
us today with her wonderful comments. And we hope we could invite her for next sessions, the following sessions. We are planning to do a session of stereotype exactly on that. It would be great if we continue this line with a stereotype. In general, we wanted new speakers, but I think with Shreya and Paula, we need to continue talking about this because yes, physical stereotypes I think is one aspect that for women is particularly important, and they
Yes.
have a very important aggression. May I say aggression? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Is your experience, Paula, Sheira, have you feel uneasy in a place with beautiful women?
And again, it's always about what you have in your head. And I know, and I'll share maybe something that happened with one of my child so that we could maybe better understand.
Yeah.
I live in Canada. We're, of course, Black people, and there's barely any of them around my kids where we moved. And I had three kids. In our family, we're big bone, big women, and that one child was the slimmest of them all. Okay, she was wearing, as a teenager, she was wearing a size 4. One day she comes to me and she tells me that she's too fat, she's not comfortable, she's this, she's that. And in my head it's just like, what? I'm thinking, look at your sisters, look at your mother, what's going on? And it's this part where it's in your head. And because her friends were wearing size 2, in her mind she's huge. And I'm like, okay, we got to work on that. So I registered them in a group, this a dance class. And this woman, it's a community service, and this woman, after my heart, she's a big bone woman, but she dances, she jumps in the air, she does things that you're like, oh my God, I think this is the right class for us. So we went to class, and she started seeing other Black people, other Afro descendants that look like her, and she no longer have that sense that something's wrong with me. There's a different lens that you can look at yourself. If you're looking at yourselves just from the lens of the people that are telling you, you don't fit, guess what? You start developing that sense that there's something wrong with me. My Lord created me the way that I am. Would I like to be a size 2? Nah. I've always wanted to be 6 foot though. That also is not going to happen. It's just, you have to figure out what's important. There's one that I really don't want, and there's this time where I have one of my friends who, she's a size 6'2". She's a tall woman, and she wears every now and then those men's suits, and I'm like, oh my God, I could so see me in this, but it doesn't look like this on me because I don't have the long legs, the long torso, so you have to make peace with who you are and appreciate who you are. So, do people comment? Most people, most of the time, when people tell me, "Oh, I like the way you dress," or "I like this outfit," or whichever, they don't say "for a big woman." I just like it. So it's in my head. Let it go. So I let it go. So every now and then, when people say, "Oh, you can't wear that," I'm like, let me see. I'll decide if I can or if I cannot. That's my choice. And this is the part according to my own standards and my own boundaries. And those are the portion where, as women, because we live in a society where so much of the world is prescripted for women. You have to wear this. You have to do this. Your hair should go like that. Oh, this year's color is this. Just says who? You want to sell something. You want me to feel that I need your service. But technically, my job is to figure out what serves me, what is best for me, and how do I live my journey to my best potential. Not
I saw
looking
that.
at and
Yeah.
saying, regret. Oh, no, I should have.
The question for the future, no? Who set these rules? No, because we are following these rules. Who is the one who set them?
Right.
Please,
Who
I
is
had
that
the
committee?
We go far back, and we're talking from a perspective. There are cultural standards. There are, and it's like the other thing that always made me twinge a little. Men design clothes for women according to their beauty standards.
Yeah.
But most women that will model those clothes are like don't fit in the average woman's size. But this is where they set you up for failure. If you don't realize that, you're like, okay, it's never going to work. But this is the part where there are things we can go back in the sense of what was. There used to be a time where if you were a girl, you could only wear dresses and skirts. Nowadays, we wear pants, we wear leather jackets, we wear shorts, we wear anything we want in the right environment, of course, but you get to pick. But back then, in the 1600, was that a choice? No, this is what you're wearing. We're done. As
Gerard,
we evolve.
and Gerard, what you say about India, no? You have to be married, slim, no? Well dressed. Is it like that? The pressure of the society is hard.
It's society's pressure, and sometimes
It,
people.
Shreya?
I would say
Yeah.
Shreya.
Oh,
Shreya.
Shreya?
Shreya.
I think
Oh, I
she's
think she.
frozen.
Yeah.
well, I would say in the meantime, if Shreya's frozen, I'm going to be playing devil advocate today. Because
love
talking
those.
about clothes sizes, it's very interesting. And there are so many women out there that say, I want to be size, like you said, size 2 or actually even size 0. And I happen to be, just like the other side of the boundary, I happen to be one of those with size 0, actually, not even size 2. And it's a very interesting thing because women who are size 0 and usually were petite women, usually were like, tiny, teeny, and that's why we're size 0. We don't like it actually because it's like we can't reach anything on the shelf. And up until very recently, and even now, the selection of clothing are limited. And I know even just recently, it probably within the last 10 years, if you want to buy size 0 petite clothing, it costs more.
Oh.
It's less material, but it costs more, and it's more limited. If you go to any website right now and you're like, okay, I want petite and I want size 0, the selections went from about 200 to 20.
Wow.
So it is so interesting how we all get into these illusions of we wanting to become somebody else's, like both Shreya and Paul was saying. And you forget that on the other side of that is everybody always want to be everybody else. And it makes me think about a quote that says that the phrase comparison despair, where comparing yourself, I want to be, like that model into this, and I want to be, and the people who are like that, who says, oh my goodness, this is not as sweet as it is. I wish it's the other side. And so it's so interesting. And so I would say really, like, at the end, we should all ask, to me,
Yeah, we do us.
ask, what are we comparing it? And what would you love? What would you really, really love instead of what, like you said, Paula, what men and society telling us to be?
Right.
Shreya, now we have lost it. Now you are here, Shreya. Thank God you are here again.
Yeah. There was some internet issue, so I just got thrown off. Yeah.
Have you heard the question of the pressure of the society in India? So you have the pressure if you are married or not. You have to be slim, dressed very well. That pressure, do you feel the pressure? Is a society that put pressure on that aspect, stereotypes?
I think, like Paula mentioned a while back, it's all about the mindset. It's in your head. So I feel yes, initially, the stereotypical standards of beauty which are set by the society, and typically in the Indian scenario, I think the beauty standards are kept very traditionalized, and based on the culture. They would expect a girl to only wear, traditional attire, saris all the time. So I did face a lot of criticism in terms of, and personally, I always, was compared to my elder sibling. So we two are poles apart. So it started from the family, the kind of upbringing we had. though we were treated as equals, but the society or the relatives or friends, when they compared both of us, they started talking about how physical features were poles apart. So she had this tiny frame, and I always had this genetically so to say pleasantly plump. That's how people used to put it, as rather than calling it obese, they used to call it pleasantly plump. And that initially hit me somewhere. And I really used to feel uncomfortable in the clothes all the time, trying to hide my flap. But over a period of time, like I said, it's all about amplifying your weaknesses. And now I think I am more comfortable in my own skin. If I had to really quote an incident lately, this morning I had put some pictures on the social media, and I had a very nice friend and colleague commenting on it saying that, oh, you look beautiful because you have lost weight. And I was like, oh, please, so I was like, I've always been comfortable in my own skin, whether with, looking fabulous or not, with all my flab and all my weight, I have accepted myself. So please, you also accept me the way I am. I need not change for you according to your beauty standards. So somewhere I think it's we women who have created the stereotypical images of, women being like this or women dressing like this. Even at the work front, I remember a couple of organizations that are, the typical Indian MNCs. I used to find, being brought up in a very open environment, a cosmopolitan environment. I was born in Africa and then brought up in India. There were a lot of prejudices even when I started off, working with organizations, especially the Indian organizations, where I was more comfortable wearing the formal suits or the skirts, and people were expecting me to wear saris, because I was into a particular role. I was a human resource, a professional or a trainer and an L&D person. So I think society always will try to put you into that, idealistic framework. It's you who have to break through that. And for me, that is how my transformational journey took a peak and turn. And I think the three things majorly what helped me was, like I said earlier, choosing, those empowering choices, breaking those stereotypical, standards that were set, choosing to challenge those norms, and of course, choosing to transform myself and going all out, talking about my imperfections. So that has really helped me in my journey. That's what I would like to share.
Well, thank you so much. This has truly been an empowering, fresh, and enriched conversation with you ladies. I really enjoy it. Our time has come upon us, so I need you to give a parting thought or parting statement until we meet again. So let's start with Paula.
Interesting. I would say when I was a child, they used to call me a devil's advocate. And I hated that because, who likes the devil? So I chose now to call myself a status quo disruptor. So be the status quo disruptor in your life and in other people's life. Let other people realize that it doesn't have to be a specific way. They can be their own self.
Yes. Thank you, Paula. And Shreya?
I would like to keep it short. Yes, the parting note I would say is, I think every woman or every individual should celebrate their uniqueness, because we were meant to celebrate ourselves, embracing the differences. Just imagine the world being all the same, how boring it would be. So I really seek and yeah, so I really feel that everybody should celebrate their, uniqueness. And that's where you find a new version of you. So that's how I call it, be you, elite you. So that would be my, life mantra that I would really like to share with everyone out here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Bridget?
I would say there is an old saying, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. And that is very true. There are people whom everybody tell them how beautiful they are, and for whatever reasons you decide you're not beautiful, and so What do you
Yeah.
see of yourself? Just keep in mind, whatever your opinion, it is in the eyes of the beholder.
Yes. Thank you, Bridget and Mar.
This is absolutely amazing. It's a mission accomplished, isn't it? Tanya and Bridget, well, we are doing this series of conversation. It was in relation to seeking peace. That it was the book of
Yes,
Bridget, and this is part of seeking peace. Seeking this personal peace,
it
seeking
is.
this balance, inner balance. We cannot change the world, but we could deliver tools for the people to find themselves. There's no
Yes.
more balance in the world if the people find themselves. Most of the aggression is because they wanted to have what others have. They wanted to be what others be. And they create their fantasies that cannot be accomplished. I think there is a mess. So try to put health in emotions and delivering health to the world. And that is a small conversation, but enriched, we say, and very, very fresh because it's built through spontaneity. Sharia and Paula. Sharia already know her. Paula is the first time, and I hope is that the first time of many others that you will shine with us in this space. Thank you so much for here, Sharia. I would like to highlight that Sharia it was not only an guest speaker as it's supposed to be. She participates on the flyers, on
Yes.
the structure, on the
Yes.
ideas. So she is one of the architecture of this new series of so
Yes.
Sheila, thank you so much for
Oh, you've
all your
been
all your done. And so finally, I think Tanya will make the wrap up. I just would like to say that this is a wonderful introduction on these last 15 minutes to our next conversation next month that are all invited to start talking about these physical stereotypes because it's about wellness as Shreya addressed it today, and it's about setting boundaries as Paula also addressed it. So join us and come with us. Thank you so much. I
Thank
really
you.
enjoy it. I always say I enjoy it because for me it's very very important. So I enjoy it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, all
thank you.
you wonderful ladies. I really appreciate your time and your presence and everything you shared with our audience. We are empowered, we are refreshed, and we're looking for the next conversation. Thank you. Thank you, all the guests who joined us today. Everyone, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you so much.